Welcome back, everyone. We need to have an honest conversation about Caitlin Clark and the Indiana Fever, because at this point, the partnership doesn't feel nearly as seamless as many expected. And that's surprising, because not too long ago, it looked like everything was heading in the right direction. There were stretches last season where you could clearly see the foundation taking shape. You could see the chemistry developing, and it genuinely felt like Indiana was putting together something that had the potential to become special. The blueprint was already there. Heading into 2025, the task seemed pretty straightforward. They didn't need to tear everything down and start from scratch. They simply needed to build on what they had already established and add a little more discipline and refinement. That's what makes the current situation so frustrating. The Fever had already developed an identity. They had one of the most explosive offenses in the league. Caitlin Clark was orchestrating everything with her vision and creativity. Kelsey Mitchell was providing elite scoring. Aaliyah Boston was controlling the paint and giving the team a dominant interior presence. The pieces complemented each other naturally. Was the system flawless? Of course not. Every team has areas that need improvement. Adjustments were necessary. But there's a huge difference between making adjustments and completely reinventing what was already working. Then Stephanie White took over and made it clear that she wanted significant changes, especially on the offensive end. From her perspective, it appeared that Indiana had become too easy to figure out. And to be fair, every coach wants to evolve. Every coach wants versatility and doesn't want opponents becoming comfortable defending a single approach. But that line of thinking raises an interesting question. Many of the best offenses in basketball are actually very predictable. Opposing teams know exactly what those elite teams want to do. They know where the ball is likely to go. They recognize the sets being run and the players involved. Yet none of that matters because execution beats predictability. Think about the Golden State Warriors during their championship years. Everyone knew what was coming, but stopping it was another story. The Las Vegas Aces have operated in much the same way. Elite teams aren't successful because they hide their strengths. They succeed because they execute them at such a high level that opponents struggle to do anything about it. And that's why the idea that Indiana needed a complete offensive makeover never really made sense. If a team's attack collapses simply because opponents know what's coming, then the bigger issue is a lack of talent. But talent has never been Indiana's problem. We've already seen what this group is capable of when Caitlin Clark is playing at her highest level. We've watched her completely take over games. We've seen how her passing and spacing make life easier for everyone around her. We've seen Kelsey Mitchell flourish alongside her. We've seen Aaliyah Boston benefit from the attention Clark draws and the opportunities that come from her playmaking. That's why so many people are wondering whether the answer was ever to reinvent the system at all. Maybe the real solution was much simpler. Keep building on what already worked, fine-tune the details, and trust the talent that had already shown it could be one of the most dangerous combinations in the WNBA. The potential for this group is still enormous. That's what makes the current situation so frustrating. Everyone knows how high the ceiling is, yet the Fever simply aren't performing anywhere close to that level. And because of that, even people who aren't emotionally invested in the debate have started raising legitimate questions. Now, to be clear, Caitlin Clark isn't above criticism. No superstar is. Every player shares some responsibility when things aren't working. But if we're talking about who deserves the bulk of the scrutiny, a lot of that naturally falls on Stephanie White. And there's a simple reason why. Stephanie White willingly stepped into this situation. Caitlin Clark didn't choose where she would begin her WNBA career. The Fever selected her. Meanwhile, White knew exactly what she was taking on when she accepted the job. She knew what made Clark one of the most electrifying players in basketball. She saw what she accomplished at Iowa. She understood the style that had already produced success and helped turn Indiana into one of the league's most exciting offenses. That's why it's difficult to understand the approach we're seeing now. If you choose to coach a player with a unique skill set, you don't immediately try to reinvent who that player is. You don't ignore years of evidence and pretend she suddenly needs to become something completely different. Great coaches identify strengths and build around them. They put their stars in positions to thrive. Instead, what many fans are seeing right now feels like the opposite. Rather than designing a system that highlights Caitlin Clark's gifts, it appears the Fever are asking Clark to adjust herself to fit the system. And that's where much of the frustration comes from. At the same time, the conversation surrounding Clark has taken some bizarre turns. What started as normal basketball discussions has drifted into territory that makes little sense. Suddenly, people are questioning her leadership, calling her a bad teammate, and throwing out labels that are way over the top. That kind of talk needs to stop. Not every player-coach relationship is destined to be perfect, and that doesn't mean either side is toxic. It doesn't mean there's hatred or some massive personal issue. Sometimes two basketball philosophies simply don't align. We've seen that happen countless times throughout sports history, and it's important to remember who Caitlin Clark has been throughout her career. Time after time, she has exceeded expectations. At Iowa, she consistently pushed the program beyond what many thought was possible. Since her departure, the Hawkeyes haven't been able to duplicate that same level of success, and that's no accident. Truly elite players raise the standard of entire organizations, and Clark has repeatedly shown that ability, which is why Indiana's current struggles feel so unusual. Watching the Fever, there are moments when everything seems forced. The rhythm doesn't always look natural. The flow isn't as smooth as it could be. Most importantly, it doesn't always feel like a team fully taking advantage of its greatest weapon. That's one reason the trade speculation refuses to disappear. Now, does that mean a deal is inevitable? Absolutely not. But it's easy to understand why the conversation exists. Sometimes in sports, both sides ultimately benefit from going in different directions. If Indiana is committed to Stephanie White's preferred approach, maybe there's a legitimate question about whether Clark is the ideal centerpiece for that style. Perhaps the organization wants to prioritize defense above everything else. Maybe they envision a slower pace and a completely different identity. And if that's truly the long-term vision, then difficult conversations eventually become unavoidable. Take someone like Janelle Salon, for example. She's widely regarded as one of the brightest young talents in the game, yet Golden State has struggled to consistently put her in situations where she can fully showcase what she brings offensively. And she's not the only one. There are several players on that roster who have talent, but the team lacks the type of floor general who can make life easier for everyone around them. Now picture what happens if Caitlin Clark enters that equation. Suddenly, the entire offense looks different. One hypothetical deal that has been discussed would involve Golden State sending Indiana a massive collection of future assets. That package could include first-round selections in 2027, 2028, and 2029. Along with the 2028 second-round pick acquired through the Flau'jae Johnson trade and a 2027 third-round selection. That's 5 draft picks in total. Then there's Cecilia Zandalicini, who brings immediate value to Indiana. At 6'2", she provides size, perimeter shooting, defensive versatility, and the ability to play multiple positions. She's comfortable at power forward and could slide into the rotation right away. In terms of floor spacing, she offers another dimension and could even compete for a starting role depending on how the Fever want to structure their lineup. Add a player like Raven Johnson to handle point guard duties while keeping Kelsey Mitchell as the primary scorer, and suddenly the roster begins to look much more defense-oriented. Instead of constantly searching for defenders, Indiana could fully embrace a defensive identity, which appears to align with the style Stephanie White wants to establish. From that perspective, such a move would allow the Fever to become the type of team they seem committed to building. Meanwhile, Golden State would receive exactly what they've been missing: a true offensive engine. Because the reality is simple: scoring has been an issue. Shooting 5 for 33 from beyond the arc isn't a formula that can hold up over the course of a season. Players like Janelle Salon and Cecilia Zandalicini are often forced into difficult shots because opposing defenses don't have to worry about an elite creator setting the table. Caitlin Clark changes that instantly. Tough, contested looks become open opportunities. Possessions that previously stalled suddenly have rhythm. Players who were creating everything themselves start receiving easier scoring chances. Everyone on the floor benefits from having an elite playmaker directing the offense, and there are multiple ways a deal could be structured. Players like Leticia Amihere or Kirsten Bell could be included to provide additional flexibility. Perhaps Julie Van Loo enters the conversation. Maybe Demiris Dantas becomes part of the financial side of the deal. There are several possibilities, but the most important part isn't the exact package, it's how the pieces fit on the court. Just imagine a lineup featuring Caitlin Clark alongside Veronica Burton, Gabby Williams, Kayla Thornton, and Kia Stokes. But coming off the bench, you'd still have players like Janelle Salon, Caitlin Chen, Tiffany Hayes, Kirsten Bell, and Leticia Amihere. But that's just one perspective. Now I want to hear from you. Do you believe Caitlin Clark and Stephanie White can eventually make things work in Indiana? Could the Golden State Valkyries actually be the ideal destination if a trade ever became a reality? And if you were running the Fever, would you even entertain an offer like this? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. And if you enjoyed the video, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss the latest updates. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.